Hey everyone, welcome to See You Live, the video show where we take a deeper dive into some of our favorite topics, food, drinks, everything development. Right here we got Colin, Castore, and Collin from Seventh Son and Antiques on High. We're going to take a deeper dive into the local brewery scene here. They just opened up Antiques on High down in the Brewery District. How's that been going?
Antiques on High's been going amazing. We worked on it for kind of even longer than we expected it was going to take, but that all kind of worked out because the beers got a little bit more time to sit in the barrels and kind of turn into what we wanted them to, and we had a little extra time to tweak out the service and the drinks and all that stuff, and it's been going great.
Awesome. So, Seventh Son, one of our founding breweries back 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, we're kind of the grandpas of the brewing scene right
Made
now.
the stake, and now you're opening your second one. And this is kind of a time where people are saying, craft breweries are saturating the market. We've reached the point of saturation. And then other people, specifically brewers, are more like, nah, man, we're like not even close to places like Portland.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're not in the latter group because you just opened another one.
Yeah.
But do you think that the market has changed at all? In what ways?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean the market when we opened, we were the seventh brewery in town, seventh or eighth, depending on how you count it. There are now 48 or 49 of us in town, so that's a pretty big difference. Consumers think about beer differently. I think the shelf space is definitely between what's offered locally and what distributors are bringing into Ohio. It's completely pretty full. I think shelf space has maybe hit that saturation point.
I think the incoming brands are more of the problem. Like you could support 40 some breweries in Columbus, no big deal. But it's the idea that we're competing then against somebody like a BrewDog that is kind of an international brand, and then you've got New Belgium, and the Cincinnati guys are coming up pretty hard too. But beyond that, even it's just coast to coast. Anybody that wants to sell a lot of beer eventually comes to Ohio because we drink a lot of beer here. So
I think we have we're usually like the seventh highest state in consumption, and then we have all of the either top 20 or 25 regional size, which Brewers Association classifies as like over 15,000 barrels. We have all of them in Ohio.
Just trying to skip those winter blues, huh?
Yeah. But I mean, locally, it's still kind of awesome. Like, as long as people don't want to take over the world, we're kind of in that camp. Like, we want to make more beer, but we're not quite take over the world size.
Yeah.
I think there's tons of space for everyone, and your brew pub or your tap room in our case, it's become more like a community gathering, hangout, friendly bar space as much as it's a place that we make beer and everything, and there's always space for that.
Yeah, I feel like people, even though you have all these different breweries coming in, people really prefer their neighborhood brewery over.
Yeah, I mean that's what it should be. When your friends come in from out of town, you want to take them to the thing that's like unique to Columbus and unique to your neighborhood, and it's awesome that there's now like 49 of those unique things around town, and 300 in Ohio.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like what I've observed is like the market is changing here in that it's becoming more niche. I mean, you got guys like Pretentious Brewing opening up, and you have that Gamut brewery coming to Old Town, and now Antiques on High. Do you feel like niche is kind of where we're going in the market?
I think that people finding as a beer consumer kind of gets a little more sophisticated. I think that we're finding out all the different parts of craft beer. Like craft beer isn't just IPA. It's also like there's these people who are going to be doing really cool German lagers, and people are coming back to that, and people are doing Pretentious and us. We're trying to bring kind of the sour wild thing to town, and I think that people are just discovering that there's a bigger beer spectrum out there.
You can explore each one more deeply.
Yep.
You got some nine flagship beers, right? At Antiques.
We launched with 9.
9 on draft right now.
The flagship thing's a little fuzzy down there because some of these beers can take anywhere, like the barrel itself can take anywhere from 6 to 24 months to be ready, and then there's a blending component. So we've just done our first round basically of packaging and getting beers ready. So it's hard to know, okay, that one had the raspberries in it. Let's try to put that together again. It might be another 6 months before it's ready.
Right.
So it isn't really going to be there all the time, but it's one we want to repeat for sure.
Oh, sure.
But the space did allow us to put in 3 very large format wooden tanks. They're called fooders. And those are gonna, once those become mature and they start packaging, those will act a little bit more of like a flagship role, is that we can package out of those a little more often, and they'll be a lot more consistent because we're just refilling the same tank.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's the fun thing about the sour thing. It's a little bit more, you just gotta feel your way through it. It isn't quite just like do your same recipe over and over and you get the same results every time. There's a big reactionary component and blending component to it too.
Yeah, I'm sure it's about what's available too.
So we've got a nice, right now on tap, we got a nice gamut of like not very sour with a minimal amount of funk all the way through some stuff that's extremely sour and very funky. There's some fruit to certain beers, and we're also doing a handful of like kind of hazy hop forward IPAs and things like that too. So there's a lot of really nice stuff on tap right now.
And right here you got some Wax Poetic, huh?
Yeah.
You want to bust it open?
Yes. This is our sort of the basis for a lot of the beers is just a pretty simple blonde ale that then spends a lot of time in the barrel and gets funky and sour. Mm-hmm. And so just a straight up blending of those blonde barrels is the Wax Poetic.
And we worked with like how many different yeast labs to find like different yeast and bacteria strains. Yeah. It's this kind of cool thing that that's an offshoot of Sour Wild getting more popular, is that there's all these kind of like craft microbiology yeast labs starting up too. So we found a bunch of those. Yeah.
So what am I tasting here? What kind of flavor profiles are you looking at?
This one's got a decent amount of acidity, but it's not overly aggressive. It actually has a decent amount of body to it. A lot of sour beers can dry out quite a bit and be very thin. This one still retains a little bit of kind of body to it, which is nice. Then you get some pineapple, a little kind of funky dry grass kind of thing. And then my favorite component of this is there's almost like a diesel characteristic. It's something that shows up in really old Rieslings and things like that. It sounds, a lot of these beers, when you talk about them and when you write them down on paper, they sound terrible. But it's the interplay of fruit and funk and all this weird stuff that comes through. It's this really cool beverage. But when you just say, hey, this kind of smells like gasoline, that doesn't seem like that great of a
tastes
thing
like
on its
burner,
own.
it smells like gasoline.
Yeah. And you fill a pineapple into it. So cheers. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah, that was good. I'm sure you have some like trial and error stuff, like you just try stuff and you're like, never mind.
The nice thing with this kind of brewing is usually that just means the barrel's not ready yet.
Okay.
Taste it and you're like, oh, what is that? Just, okay, he's not ready. Let that barrel sit for 4 more months, come back to it, try it again, and usually whatever you disliked about it has turned into something kind of great.
And also you can get some things that like, whoa, the acidity to this is just like way off the charts, too sour to drink, and then you blend that with something else and you kind of find that. That's really where I think Colin's been excelling and doing some cool stuff, is finding that balance between all the different barrels. And
so this batch that we're drinking, this first round on Wax Poetic, was 6 different wine barrels full of sour beer that got mixed together. And so a couple of them were a little flabbier but had interesting flavors, or some of the other ones maybe didn't have as much flavor but they were very, very sour. You kind of put all that together to get a well-rounded beverage. Then you get some volume there, so you package it and you can have a decent amount of that beer on hand. And so then in a month or so, it's time to go back to all the other barrels that are kind of maturing, start picking out the individuals that would come together nicely to make the second round of this beer. So,
okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, beyond beer, even though it's awesome, I really like this. There seems to be like this need to establish yourself beyond your beer as a brewery. You can't just open up a brewery and have 40 taps and have people knocking on your door. But I feel like at Antiques and High, you have established kind of your own identity there. How did you craft that?
Well, I think we have been, I guess to start, we've been looking for a space to do this project for almost 3.5 years. Like almost like right after we started Seventh Son it's just a little over 5 years now. And then we almost immediately started thinking about like, hey, Sour Wild beers are awesome. Let's find a cool, unique space for it and everything. We went through a couple different iterations and a couple different landlords and finally kind of settled down there. And it was like, well, hey, here's this really cool thing. It used to be an antique mall. And we're doing kind of like old style beer aging and old brewing methods. Like, let's call it, let's keep the name. It's Antiques on High. And then that kind of grew into like my business partners and I have always really liked kind of thrifting around.
Fetishized even?
Yeah, old things. Like I have too many old cars, and my other business partner has a lot of weird old jackets, and Jen just has weird stuff in general. So that kind of came into it too. We're like, well, let's do a spot that's not necessarily like Maxinerm is kitschy or something, but things that have like cool aesthetics or cool designs that we liked from different eras and different times, and then let's carry that forward even into the beers and some of the names of the beers, and just kind of try and think about all these like kind of unique, cool aesthetics that you find when you.
I think it was important too with starting something new that it couldn't look exactly like Seventh Son, and we also didn't want it to look like. If you close your eyes and imagine a brew pub, you can come up with about half of what you're probably going to find in your average brew pub that has some bulbs and reclaimed wood and so on and so forth. So it's looking at it, being like, all right, that stuff is established. What's the next step, or what should the next kind of brew pub look like, or tasting room, or whatever you want to call it. And so it's like looking at different design choices that way. Trying to stay away from stuff that you're starting to see more often. To say, well, what can we?
We kind of wanted it to like the beers and the cocktails and everything is kind of like different and challenging and interesting. We're like, let's have a space that reflects that when people come in, they know they're kind of in for a different experience when they get there.
Do you feel like you're pulling the Seventh Son crowd down there, or do you feel like you're appealing to a whole new audience?
Both, I hope. I like to think the Seventh Son people go down and check it out. Without just giving up on Seventh Son entirely. I guess we'll see a year from now how that plays out.
We've run ourselves out of business. Yeah. I think that there's a weird thing I noticed, because I've been living in the Short North for about 17 or 18 years now, and I found myself like I hang out in the Short North and I go up to Clintonville, and I don't really go more than 5 or 10 miles from my house usually, but I don't cross downtown and get into German Village very much. And then a bunch of my friends who are like Old Town and German Village, they kind of hang out in Old Town and German Village and Brewery District, and they don't necessarily go up to the Short North too much.
Right.
So I think we might find a little bit of that. That was kind of our reasoning to going down to that part of town. And then also like all the way down to Hungarian Village and Mead Marion Village. There's just a lot of kind of development potential and growth going on down there. It's really turning into like a great neighborhood or a great place to kind of buy a house and start up.
Awesome.
Yeah, that section of High Street's great. Even you got Colossal Republic and Cantina and Daily Growler with Big Mamas in it, and there's a pet store and a weed glass store. There's all this cool stuff right on that little drag, and then you go a little bit further and there's room for more development and stuff. So it can be a really cool.
Yeah, our landlords actually kind of, I think they bought some of the next block too down there where the pet store used to be, and they're planning on a couple more kind of restaurants and bars down that way. And just kind of trying to make it, like I've been telling people, it's kind of analogous to like that Little Palace 4th Street strip, how that kind of started, and it helped drive a little bit downtown.
Destination. Yeah.
Ambrose and Eve just opened up right next to us 2 days ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a yoga studio right behind as well.
Yeah,
so.
and Ambrose looks amazing. Like that's definitely going to bring some people in, and their food's killer, and Katie's awesome, so yeah.
Well, yeah, Auntie's on High opened up just last week down at 714 South High Street. Definitely check it out. They've got Ambrose and Eve. They got food trucks every night. Thank you, Colin.
Yeah,
for
thanks for having us.
Yeah.